Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to A Drink with Crazy. What's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing tonight? I hope that everybody's doing well. For those that are here, Tim, what's going on? It's good to see you. And I hope everybody else shows up tonight because it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good freaking time. So, got a few things to talk about tonight. Trippy Soul. Oh, he's got a new name now. He's not Trippy Soul anymore. Anyway, Trippy had a good point earlier today in the Discord, and because I wasn't going to talk about it, but I am going to talk about it now. And that is the EA acquisition that happened. But then I also want to talk about something that I discovered probably midweek last week. And that is the amount of absolute thirsty women that are supporting indie creators. And I want to point that out. And although some of you might be like, wait a minute, what do you mean thirsty women supporting indie creators? There's some context around that and perception around that, but I think it's interesting. And I also think it's kind of the other side of something I've noticed in a lot of independent comics as well. And I really want to talk about just the thirstiness that is out there in the indie world in relation to what we want to see out of the what we want to see out of indie comics, or at least what I would like to see. I guess I should say what we want to see, what I want to see out of independent comics and novels and so on and so forth. So ladies and gentlemen, oh my goodness, I do not have a guest tonight. I was supposed to go live with Tyler from Draw and Talk on Monday, but some friends of our and define what you mean by thirsty white women. Sounds naughty. Yeah, it is. I was supposed to go live on Monday night with Tyler from Draw and Talk. His schedule was really, really tight. But some friends of ours had some car trouble, so we had to meet up with them, and we actually let them borrow one of our vehicles for a few days. So that way they could get, they had a bad tire blowout, and the donut that they had was just bad. So we let them borrow one of our cars. So I met up with them and talked with them for a little bit. And not only that, I was also incredibly tired on Monday. So I don't know if I would have been able to pull off a really good stream with Tyler. So probably a little bit of a fortuitous accident that happened there. But ladies and gentlemen, what do I get into first? Because everybody's talking about the EA acquisition, right? Saudi Arabia in a pack, and Jared Kushner or Donald Trump's son-in-law or whatever is also kind of a part of this whole deal, and they got bought out. But I also really want to talk about this other thing that I kind of noticed and why I went over to Goodreads, which is a site that I don't go to almost ever. And reason I don't go to it is I don't necessarily care. I buy indie books from a lot of indie authors that I know, and some of them are notable, and some of them I like to talk about, and some I just don't. And some guys I think have the talent, and if they foster that and they keep going, we're good to go. We're on the rise. The other thing, but one of the things that I was like, well, I want to try to find indie authors and indie creators that are outside of my little sphere and kind of bring them in and talk with them and interview them as well. Part of my networking thing, like what I want to do as far as networking goes. And not just networking in like the indie superhero comics realm and stuff like that, because I am interested in so much more. Heavily music, good sir. Oh, crap, I forgot to say, if you guys are here, obviously I'm not on Twitter anymore, but I'm going to be talking about thirsty white women, and I'm going to be talking about EA tonight and possibly the mistakes that the Xbox is making and some other things in the indie world as well. Share this live stream. Be like, hey, Royce is out there. He's probably going to talk some shit. Let everybody know. Car was acting up. Took to the shop. $10K to fix. No bueno. Oh. Yep. Yeah, mechanical stuff do be like that. $10K to fix. That's a major issue. That's not something you can fix with a couple of wrenches from your garage. Oh, that's not good, man. I've been there. Yeah, my truck was acting up earlier this year or last year or whatever year it was. And that was $2,000 to fix. Thankfully we were able to get it fixed. But anyway, everybody getting car problems. Yeah, everybody getting car problems. Okay. Let me rant really quick. Is it too early for a rant? Can I rant? Please? Please, chat, do I have your blessing to just rant a little bit on something that just irritates the shit out of me? Okay? I've talked with a lot of people. And a lot of times it's the older generation. And yes, I'm going to throw some shade at the older generation, but you get a lot of people out there that's like, cars just aren't made like they used to. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? They're like, well, back in the day, I could work on my own vehicle, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, well, yeah. But also, historically speaking, vehicles would oftentimes break down at 50, 60, 70,000 miles. And then, yes, you could work on it, but at that point, you're sacrificing a lot of your personal time to keep that vehicle running, even with regular maintenance of like oil changes and transmission fluid and all that stuff. But nowadays, we have vehicles that with regular maintenance, just taking it into the shop and getting certain things done at certain intervals. I have a truck sitting outside with 220,000 miles on it. And outside of the fact that it leaks a little bit of oil because the oil pan seal is just kind of getting old, it's running strong. And there's no perceivable issues with the truck because I get my regular maintenance done on it. And the sacrifice there is that I have a vehicle that does get way more lifetime and mileage than the older vehicles. The trade-off is I can't really work on it anymore, but it doesn't have to be worked on all the time. But when it does have to be worked on, it's got to be, it's a lot of money. And so when people look at me and they go, well, just I used to be able to work on my vehicles and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, yeah, but after a quarter of the mileage, you were constantly spending time to do everything you could, all of the time, spending your money, nickel and diming yourself, and you're nickel and diming your own time to keep that vehicle running. Nowadays, we have vehicles that will go 150, 200, 300,000 miles on a gas engine. God, if you get into diesel, we're talking 500,000 miles. And we don't have to spend our time and nickel and dime our pocketbooks to work on them every single weekend. So the idea that, they just used to build them better. No, they didn't. That is verifiably and historically false. Stop looking into the past with rose-colored glasses and realize we actually do have better technology now. The price of that better technology does come with a higher price tag, though. 100 and had nearly $300. Well, yeah, but it's only got 220,000 miles on it. I never said I was getting ready to get rid of it. Right? F100 had nearly $300, and the only reason it died was rust. There you go. Oh, yeah, rust from New York. Yeah, that's all that salt. That's all that salt water. No, but I'm not saying that a lot of them old vehicles couldn't go that far, but a lot of them needed a lot more maintenance and stuff like that and work to keep them running constantly on your end to where you were spending a lot of money. It wasn't like all I've done for my truck is just standard oil changes and, the regular, like literally just oil changes. And then obviously I had that issue with that torque converter, but that is what it is. I haven't had to do any major maintenance outside of the torque converter. I gotta get spark plugs done though. But anyway, that's my rant. Shit's better built today. I don't care. I stop it. But anyway, outside of there, all right. Chat, do we talk about Electronic Arts getting bought by the Saudis? And my personal opinions on that, which may turn into a rant, or do we talk about thirsty white women sponsoring indie creators? Because that one could be fun. Pick your poison, chat. Which one are we going to start? Oh, by the way, thank you all so much for being here. Liu, I see you down in the chat. Emily already said hi to. Tim Allen, I said hi to. Guys, and do me a favor, share this out on all the socials. Say Drink with Crazies live. He's talking about some stupid stuff, some fun stuff, and, some angry stuff and everything in between. I intend to cover the emotional spectrum. Well, except for crying. Might not cry today. But it's cool. It's cool. I know the answer to EA. The thirsty women is a bit of a mystery to me. So let's go with that. EA being sold. Oh, no, we need a tiebreaker. What's going on, Redoubt Productions? We need a tiebreaker. Somebody comment. EA being sold or thirsty white? You're making me want pumpkin spice latte pretty bad talking about that. What women? The fact that you spelled that phonetically. Oh, God. I had somebody it was James Craig mentioned a few years ago that I should pumpkin spice a brisket. And then I looked up what the actual seasonings for pumpkin spice is, and I'm going to be honest, like, it doesn't have pumpkin in it. And I'm going to be honest, all of those ingredients could actually probably just work for a really solid crust on a brisket. I've thought about it. I've thought about pumpkin spicing a brisket. Should I? I might do it. I might pumpkin spice a brisket. I'll make a video out of that. Just to, it'd be so based. Oh, my Lucas cigars, Harry's pumpkin spice cigars. No, why not? Go look up the seasonings that are in pumpkin spice. I'm telling you, it's not anything crazy. It's just white women. They go, what in the Orange Country you just said? Orange County you just say? Oh, pumpkin spice, pretty sure we did. Oh my God. All right, so let's cover the white women story first. And it's less of a story. So I went over to Goodreads. Okay, probably shouldn't go over to Goodreads. And Goodreads is like, hey, the indie authors that are up and coming that you should really pay attention to. And I'm like, all right, well, what are we looking at here? What's going on with it? Because I wanted to see if I could reach out to any of these indie authors, and then I realized, no, that's probably not for my audience. But here's what I'm talking about. Because over on Goodreads, this is the recommended list to follow these up and coming indie authors. Accidental Leah, Literal Leah Romance Diaries, Nobody's Perfect Rescue Me Saga, Nobody's Hero Rescue Me Saga, The Darkest Frost. That looks like a dude thing, maybe, I don't know, but Tanya Holmes. So Sands of Betrayal, Kilted Desire. These are independent authors, ladies and gentlemen. Russian Roulette, and if you zoom in and you see some of these, you're just like, dear God, all of these. Look, The Law of Attraction, Lawyers in Love, right? Going down, Wallbanger, and if you look at that, oh my God. And this is what Goodreads. Now, and the reason why I say this, and you're like, wait a minute, hold on. You're pulling from, and you guys might have problems with Goodreads, right? You might, but here's what I'm saying. When you go to Goodreads, which is a notable website for, you know, I know, dude. Yes, the book is called Wallbanger. So you just discovered Book Talk. No, I didn't just discover Book Talk. I did not. But what I'm saying is that this list right here, as you scroll, and it's just a whole bunch of thirsty women just writing about thirsty women stuff. Like, that dude's got an uncomfortable amount of muscles, and that's just not. But it's a whole bunch. So when you go, you're like, I want to find good indie stuff to read. Where do I go? Well, a lot of people are going to go to Goodreads, which is a very prominent website for book reviews and things like that in the author world. And the perception is that up and coming indie artists and indie authors are and the ones that are getting a lot of ratings. I mean, these are thousands of God, there's thousands of thirsty women. Jesus Lord. But what I'm saying is the perception, my normie friends love that book. Yes, some people might refer to it as smut, Tim Allen. What I'm saying is the perception of indie when you go to Goodreads, it's not fantasy. It's, let me rephrase that. It's not Tolkien-esque fantasy. It's absolutely fantasy, but it's not Tolkien-esque. It's a fantasy of a different sort. Anyway, we're not going to go with that any further. I was going to say something really bad. But the perception is that the things that are really popping off in the indie world are things like this. And it got me thinking because I actually really wanted to also discuss something else, and I wasn't sure how to do it. So that caused me to want to go over to like Kickstarter, right? So we go over to Kickstarter here. Okay. These are the popularity ones, right? In the last like 30 days, right? Everybody Loves Cherry, an anthology hardcover. That's a very provocative cover. we've got another provocative cover down here. Now, as you can see, there are more books in here in the comic book world for men that are, you know, the traditional fantasy. Look at that. They call us monsters. Then, I mean, that lady's kind of, they're, you know, you can see here another provocative cover. This is all for the male audience too, right? This is all for the male audience. Look at that. That lady's got, you know, that lady's definitely well endowed. We've got this here. Wait, an anime inspired by dark fantasy novels? Ooh, we got to check out the anime one. I might check that out. Gothic fantasy, dude. Right, Cheeky Comics. That's again, you can see the level of indie. I mean, indie that's just absolutely using the lusty and like sex appeal stuff. Sad Girl Psycho Baby, obviously very well endowed. Very, again, some of the stuff hopefully doesn't get me flagged. I mean, Bullet Assassin. Oh, hey, that's Draw and Talk right there. That's Draw and Talk, and I've actually talked with him about this. Okay, so here's what I'm getting at when it comes to the visual world, because men are very visual. These are the kinds of things that men are being served, right? And over in the author world, the written world, the prose world, these are the things that women are being served. And this brings me to a larger point that I really wanted to touch on, and I even spoke with Daniel P. Riley on this. When it comes to the independent world, I've been hearing a lot, especially in a lot of the reels and stuff that I'm seeing through Facebook and things like that. A lot of people are talking about actual masculinity and what that means and what it is. And a lot of people talk about creating this world for our children, our wives, our daughters, our sons, and what we need to do as men to actually provide those things. And at the same time, I also know men who talk about this stuff and they'll turn around and put out a comic with a big old chesty woman on it. And it makes me wonder, where in the indie world are we actually seeing the real masculinity? That which protects virtue, right? That which espouses virtue, that which shoulders the burden of blocking out the harmful stuff. Because there's so many people out there that say, they wonder why young men aren't getting into books lately. Well, I mean, obviously you don't want them reading from the mainstream because the mainstream is putting out a lot of stuff you don't want them to see. The indie world is doing the same thing. The indie world is also putting out provocative, evocative, erotic, and visual type stuff that you would not want to put in the hands of young men. One, also, and this might piss a lot of people off, you have to understand that reading in and of itself traditionally is more of a feminine activity. What do I mean by that? Okay, look at the hobbies that men and women choose to do. More women oftentimes choose to sit down in a quiet room, read something, and lose themselves in the book. A lot of men choose to go outside, build something, hunting, fishing, physical activities, works of labor, things of that, build cars, things of that nature. So we're already in a deficit just based off of how the genders align with what their hobbies and activities are. Now, men are more visual creatures, which is why comic books do so well with men. But as far as pros go, pros do a lot less. They do less better. They do less better with men. And by less better, I mean like young men are not getting into reading. A lot of people say, well, the problem is that we don't have stories out there for young men to read. I don't necessarily think that that's the only problem. There are a lot of problems out there like that. By the way, thank you so much for the super chat, Wrangler. I appreciate it from 420. Thank you very much. Rolando A. Ramirez, I'm not feminine. I'm a masculine book reader. That's why I love manga. I like the visuals. Let me ask you this question, Rolando A. Ramirez. How many of the mangas do you read where there's a big chesty woman, or oftentimes in some of the mangas, they will absolutely put a female character in very, very skimpy clothing in that manga. And now you may not read those mangas, but I just want to know, right? Because even in shows and mangas like all of them exactly. right there. This is the type of thing that I'm talking about. Okay. When it comes to what we're putting out in the world, and this is something that I've been asking from indie writers and creators for a very long time. There are a few people that I know that are doing it, but on the vast majority, I would say most are not. I have been asking for the last, 2 years for someone, for almost 3 years, for indie creators and indie writers to put something out that I can put into the hands of my children. Now, at the time, my oldest was 10 and my son was 9. Now my oldest is 13 and my son is 12. And then also we have an 11-year-old and we also have a 9-year-old. And I ask these writers who are writing some fantasy novels, can I put this in the hands of my kids? And they go, no, you definitely couldn't. You definitely couldn't. But I know a lot of these writers agree with me on my worldview that we need to be putting things out there for the children. And I constantly ask, where is the virtuous masculinity in indie right now? There is some, but there is not a lot. And it's a problem when people say, I know what comics I liked when I was young, and I'm going to make those comics. And you open it up, and it is some girl with like just double G titties barely being held in by a bandana, and you're just like, not going to put that in front of my son, right? In fact, when my son watches a lot of anime, and well, not a lot of anime, but some, and he gets to a point where sometimes I'll come downstairs and he's just like this. And his head is turned away. And I look at the TV, and like all anime does, they have to have the beach episode, or they have to have some sort of weird thing where the girl loses her clothes or some stupid thing like that. And my son is like, Dad, I don't know why they have to do that. Because we taught my son that it's not okay to look at images like that. And he is very, very good about it. And again, it leads me back to this question. We talk about virtuous masculinity. We are the protectors. What do we protect? Not only do we protect our household physically, but we're supposed to protect them spiritually. We need to protect the chastity of all of our children. We need to protect the virtuousness of all of our children. We need to make sure that what they are consuming is age appropriate for them. We need to make sure that they understand, and especially as they grow older, you have to have deeper and deeper talks about sexuality and things like that. Now, we are not quite there with our children yet because that's still a few years away, but as they start to become teenagers, hormones are going to be a thing, and well, all of us have been there. And I ask you all here, what are we purchasing from the indie creators? Are we purchasing from people who are putting out a who are in the stories they write non-virtuous masculinity, or are we purchasing from those who are a virtuous masculinity? And I'm not saying that we need to write a Bible thumper Jesus type of story, but what I am saying is that there are stories that I've read, and I'm like, with a couple of tweaks to the wording. Let me use, I'm going to use Lord Otter here. I was actually, I have him scheduled for this month. I'm very excited to talk with Lord Otter again. It's been quite a while. But I read Steel and Stormbright, Curse of the Star Rays, or most of the way through it. Now I'm probably going to finish it this weekend. And most of that book, I'm like, I could put this in front of my kid, except for a few of the chapters discussing the villain, because the villain culture in his book very much gives into hedonism, and he does not shy away from using a lot of the adult language around hedonism. And yet, with a couple of tweaks to how he words it, I feel that book could absolutely be put in front of the kids by just changing the language, and instead of just being blunt with it, being more hidden, maybe suggestive, maybe a few double entendres. All of us know the shows out there that we watched when we were kids, and there was a double entendre we didn't get, and now we watch it and we're like, oh, haha, that's funny as a kid. And then you get older as an adult and you watch it and you go, whoa, I didn't realize that's what they were saying. For me, a lot of those were in the Justice League. I love the Justice League anime, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Love those, or animate the cartoons. It's the same thing. But this is something that I've really been noticing, and it's something that's really, really bothered me for a long time, is we have this crisis that we say that young men are not reading anymore. And yet, I ask you, out of all of you, how many of you indie authors that I know, and I know quite a few of you, have given me something I could put in front of my 12-year-old son? If you're asking the question of how do we get more young people, more young men to read and get into these fantasy stories, how many of you are writing something that is compelling, that is a good story, that adults can read, that uses a mature language? And by mature, I don't mean by using cuss words and things of that nature. Mature language, what I mean is that you're not dumbing it down, right? You're using the maximum articulation that you can use. You know, they say the average American speaks at like, or the average American linguistic capability is around like a 4th grade to 6th grade level, right? How many of you are writing in an articulation at the maximum level that you can write at so that adults around the US or around wherever you're selling them can read this story and enjoy this story and be compelled by this story, but does not have those graphic and sometimes erotic scenes in them that I can put in front of my kids? You want young men to get into these books, but yet the parents out there who want to put books in front of their young boys are struggling to find those books. Because if you want your children to read something, you're probably a parent who cares. And this is where I'm struggling. Where is the positive masculine writer in indie? Why are you not writing these stories? I know many of you agree with me, but where are you? And why are you not writing for the future generations? Because you need to think about it. The parents who want their children to read are probably more attentive and are probably going to be more guarded about what they read. And this is something that I've been wanting to talk about for quite a long time. The Ultimate Kahuna for $2 says, there's a reason my kids don't have net access. Yes, our children have very limited access, such as they can watch YouTube in the living room where my wife and I are constantly monitoring it. And we also look at the history of what they're doing. And then the only other time they have net access is like my wife will allow them to play a game on the phone, or they video call with their cousin on the phone. But again, it's also on the phone and we monitor and make sure. So non-unsupervision, that's a double negative there. What do you mean? But again, this is something I've been thinking about. Because the Lord Otter's book, I already told the Lord Otter my thoughts on his first book, and I felt the first few chapters were incongruent with the pacing and flow of basically about chapter 3, chapter 4 on. But after chapter 3 or 4, it's fantastic. It was a great read. I couldn't put it down. I had to put it down because I was very tired and I had to go to work. I was very, very tired. I was very tired on Monday. But I can't put this great story that I really like in front of my son because the Lord Otter definitely wanted you to know in blunt language about the hedonism that the villains partake in. No unsupervised use. Gotcha. Okay. Jesus autocorrect. What was that? What was that meme years ago? You know, and they were like, "Oh, the guy who invented autocorrect died," and it says, "I hope he Reese's Pieces." Definitely don't let kids read Christman's book. No, because I'm a good father and I'm going to verify what I'm going to read to the point where I absolutely love Relentlessly Bullied Hero. I think it's a fantastic story. But the villainess is pretty chesty. And probably not something that I necessarily want to put in front of my son. Right? And it's one thing to say that you want to change the culture, but I see very few independent creators actually working to do that. They're all trying to appeal to people who are 30-year-old men. I'm sorry, their culture is already set. They're after 30 years old. Once you reach 30 years of age, the brain is fully developed. And at that time, it's actually scientifically proven it's much harder to change your worldview, change the types of thoughts that you have. Phenomena, teen friendly, I think. Drunk 3PO's book is very kid friendly. Yes, I know. I have Drunk 3PO's first book. I don't have the second one, but I do have the first one. But again, people talk about wanting to change culture, but even to the point, so think about it this way, even to the point where the Rippaverse, reading through those books, they're fine for what they are, and they obviously have their target audience. But what kind of waned me off of that is Eric talks about changing culture, making comics and putting those out into the world. And it's not that those stories had anything that were unkid friendly at all, but there were no great stories of heroism and just doing the right thing and never giving up. And it was a very, very, Eric was very much inspired by 90s comics, and you can tell that. But I never really felt the need to give those books to my kids, because I'm reading it and I'm going, what is there in these books for a child or for a younger person to get excited about, right? He going to be a dad too. I hope that changes his perspective too. I hope he asks himself if he's going to be able to put these books in the hands of his kids when they're 6 or 7 years old, when their reading proficiency is going to be there. Anthony Rondinelli, stop, love that you're posting again. Hey, thanks, man. If you guys would do me the ultimate favor, share this on every social media platform and say, hey, I'm talking. Tonight didn't have a guest. I'm interviewing a whole bunch of indie creators, comic creators, authors, and actually YouTubers. I've got my first YouTuber interview of somebody who's not kind of in this circle coming on next week. So that's going to be very fun. Fine with violence, but not with sexual content. I agree. My parents were fine with that as well. What's this about thirsty white women? Scroll back, because I don't want to cover this whole thing, but scroll back, Eric Wagon, catch up. But, and you'll see where I kind of flip over the screen to go to the web pages that I pulled up. Maybe his Rippaverse for Kids comic line will come out later. A separate line that could still connected to the type of now. Okay, no, stop, full stop. Okay, I'm actually going to pull this one up, and I usually don't pull comments up on my solo streams, but this is something that is highly important. Okay, and I want to pull this up and make sure that we go through this. Maybe his Rippaverse for Kids comic line will come out later. That is the wrong idea. Okay, here is why that is the wrong way of thinking about it. And I have said this for years. One of the terms that I hate in life, the absolute most, is the term that people use. It's very common in the English lexicon, in the American lexicon. People say, I'm raising kids. I fucking hate that. Okay. And the way that I equate it is, I don't go to a lumber raising. I go to a barn raising. I am there for the finished product. I am not raising children. Okay. They're already children. I am raising adults. I am putting into them the necessary things that they need to have to become adults. I am not raising children. They're already children just by the nature of their age and the naivety that they have about the world. They're already children. They're an uncrafted piece of wood that needs to be stood up in the ground, and then I need to give them all of the stuff to become the barn. I'm there. I'm raising adults. I do not want a separate comic book line or separate book line from anybody that's kid friendly. I want a book line or a comic book line that is designed to use the vernacular of adults, okay, to speak intelligently to me, so that I, at almost 34 years of age, can pick up the book and go, wow, this is really good. And then hand it over to my kid and say, read that. Kind of like The Lord of the Rings. Because I would argue that The Lord of the Rings, as long as you can just understand the words in it, everybody of all ages can read that. I am so sick of the idea that people talk about kids' books and that innately leads to the idea of stupefying the language. It bothers me so vehemently. One of my favorite books of all time that I read when I was a kid. It's the only book that I have ever read more than once in my life. Why? I don't read a lot. Not a pastime of mine that I like. It's just not. I try to. I'm getting better at it. Sat down and read last weekend for the first time in a long time. I like to go outside and get active and do that stuff. I like to be outside in the sun. Fuck the snow. Fuck the cold. I'm inside during that time period. I will choose going outside and being in 100-degree weather over sitting in an air-conditioned place with video games or doing something inside. I enjoy being outside. But when it comes to sitting down with a book and actually reading a book, the only book that I have ever read more than once in my life, in fact, I read it 3 times in a weekend, haven't read it since then, was The Call of the Wild by Jack London. And I would argue, and I know a lot of people think White Fang is better. I tried White Fang when I was young, couldn't get into it. But I would argue that book is all ages. And the language is not stupefied for children. I reject this idea that books that are accessible to children have to have this stupefied language. And again, it comes back to the idea of people thinking, oh, we're raising children. No, I'm raising adults. They need to learn the language of adults. They need to learn the articulation of adults. They need to understand and realize the fully formed and concentrated and thought out opinions of the adult mind. And the idea that we don't do that until they're 18, I'm sorry, they're well into their formative years, and we need to start using the language and the articulation and the thoughtfulness as if I'm speaking to you right here, but in books that are accessible to children, without the hedonism, without the sexual content. If you want to throw something in there that kind of alludes to a thing happening, but does it in a way that it's like, okay, adults are going to get this. Children may not grasp what I'm saying here yet, but they're going to, but that's okay. The kids can read that and go, oh, okay, cool. These two people just spent the night together, right? They just crashed out in a sleeping bag, whatever. Adults are going to read that and go, oh yeah, bow chicka bow wow, right? Burnt chicken, brown cow, right? Because again, but that's the worldview difference. That's the contextual difference I have as an adult versus that of a child. And so many people are not doing that. And it bothers me. It bothers me deeply that this is not a discussion that people are having in the indie space. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know of any properties offhand. It's hard to find in mainstream too nowadays. Interesting points. I'm de-swearing a short story that I wrote with adults in mind, so it's okay for young adults. There we go. And and I don't even necessarily mind books for young adults throwing out a hell or a damn, right? That's fine. But there are some books out there, and it's just like I can't put Star Shatter in the hands of my kids because of the abrasive language that's used, the over. I'm sorry, if you sound like me, I'm more of a white collar guy now while turning into one, sadly, but a blue collar guy who fuck is every other word for me when I'm hanging out with my buddies. If your book starts to resemble me, I can't put that in front of my kids. Because if I'm going to put it in front of my kids, I want to put it in front of them as an example of what they should be reading. Something better than me. Why? Because my job as a father is to raise adults, and by the time they become adults, they supersede where I was at that age. Right now, I actually think my children are doing a wonderful job at that. Why is my left arm is going numb in the muscles? It's not a heart attack. It's just like my shoulder started hurting a minute ago, and now it's going numb. That's awesome. Anyway, moving on from that. Where is the virtuous masculinity in indie writing? People talk about being masculine and doing something, but I see very little men out there who speak of this actually put it to the page and defend it. Why? Why do you not defend that which needs to be defended? Virtue, which needs to be... That's our job as men. And I would argue, if you believe the same thing that I do, but you're putting out books out there that do not defend that, you're working in the opposite direction of what you should be. You're going against virtue. You're not writing for it. Everybody out there who talks about changing culture, you're not going to change it with the 34-year-olds. You need to write something that is intelligent, articulate, exciting, and thrilling, leaving out, the hedonism of the world, that can be accessible to young people. Young people are not stupid. And if your story is exciting enough, you might actually teach them a higher level of language than what they already know. I know for me, when I was 16, that was Dante's Inferno. Dante's Inferno taught me a much higher... Actually... nope, not that one. It's this one right here. This has actually come completely unbound. This is my 1933 edition. This is the one that I read when I was a kid. It actually has the Italian on one side and the English on the other, which is really cool. But again, as a 16-year-old reading, was I even 16? I don't even think I was 16. I think I was 14, 15. I didn't have the level of language, but you know what I did? I sat there and I read Dante's Inferno, and I had dictionary.com pulled up in front of my computer. And every time a word popped up that I didn't know, I typed it in, read the definition, and went, oh, that makes sense. And it pushed me to further my linguistic capabilities. Where I've already crashed out Mayor of Orc City. You got to go back. You got to go back like, I don't know, 40 minutes or 30 minutes or something like that. You'll see. Where are these stories? Where are these stories? Because I found my time is more useful calling out my own side and being frustrated with the things that my own side does. I have people oftentimes, why don't you do this video to dunk on the other side, this, that, and the other thing? I'm like, the other side doesn't care. I mean, my side might think it's fun. But I would rather call out my own side because there's a world of people out there who say that they believe in the things that I believe in. And when I ask them, okay, cool, like, what are we doing for the next generation? What are we doing to take our values and instill them? I'm not a writer. I'm not a comic book writer. If I wrote a book, it'd probably be fucking horrible, even though my intentions would be good with it. But what books are we writing, or I say, are you guys writing that can be placed in the hands of a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old, that can also instill values in them? Take our values that we have and hand it down to that generation. Or are you just writing for the 35-year-olds? for the people that are our age. And not only that, but writing something for a 35-year-old that he can't give to the next generation because they're too young. Look at the amount of garbage they're putting in front of young children on Netflix. The left doesn't care about using kiddie language. They straight up say it in some of the kids shows that they're putting out there. But for some reason, we as conservatives have to use kiddie language, and we have to stupefy the language when it comes to writing something for children. Get fucked or get smart. And I know a lot of people in this community, and you're all a lot smarter than that. And it's fucking killing me. I've been on this for years, and I'm still not fucking seeing it. Still not fucking seeing comic books out there of heroes doing hero shit, instilling values. Still seeing comic books out there with images on it that you could probably find on some hentai websites. Can't put that in front of my kids. And at this point, I no longer believe that many of the indie artists and indie writers want to do anything fucking different than the mainstream. They want to do the exact same thing just from the right-wing perspective. And to that I say, fuck you very much and have a nice day. Scroll back a while, Bats. You'll see it. Or rewatch this tomorrow. Scroll all the way back. Liu, best case, you see heroes now suffering and being scrutinized for those virtues. Yeah. Yep. But for the parents who want to put books in front of their kids, they wouldn't be, because they're probably going to be people like me. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of reading, but you know what? I do read in front of my kids. When I read, I make sure I'm not hidden away in my office. I'm upstairs in the living room, or I'm on the back patio, or I'm at the kitchen table. I'm reading in front of my children. And I espouse to my children, guys, Daddy's not good at reading, and I need to read more. And when I read, I want you to see your father read, because it is important. But yeah, so if you guys missed my 30-minute tirade there, I'll put it up in a video as well. But I'm something that I'm passionate about. And it's kind of breaking my heart, because I guess my expectations of, when everybody was talking about the Iron Age, and I quickly realized that was just a fucking click word that people were using. And this indie movement and the passion that people had, and writing books and changing culture and making sure that we were putting shit out there for the books that and then I look at what's out there, and like 85, 90, 95% of it is shit that I would never put in front of my children. And I realize, oh, they don't actually want to change the culture. They just want a right-wing spin on it. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm pretty pissed. I'm pissed at my own side. I'm pissed at the people who said they wanted to change the culture, because they're not doing a fucking thing to do it. Yeah, don't put on sound, Maji-chan. Don't do it. Don't. Somebody type in the chat, don't put the sound on it where she works. No, because it's not, yeah. Just because I'm white doesn't mean I'm thirsty. Depends on the books you're reading. But yeah, so just so everybody's aware of how indie creators in our circle, in our sphere, they're not changing culture because they're not doing a fucking thing to do it, because the way that you do it is you put culture in front of the children. And those who are doing, and the people out there putting stuff out there, most of it, you can, there is some, and I've seen some. I would actually say I believe The Hedge, Herman P. Hunter, the Lore Forge. I believe that he is actually putting out work that can be put in the hands of young children and still enjoyable for adults to read. And I appreciate stuff like that. But yeah, you need. I've been sitting on this topic for close to 3 weeks now, trying to figure out how to say it, and I just figured, you know what? It's my live stream tonight, and I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna vent my frustrations to the indie community, and I'm gonna vent my frustrations to everybody out there who doesn't fucking get it. It's like I'm listening to myself from 5 years ago. I've been saying this for 3 years publicly, and I just don't see it. I don't. Stories of young men going out there and fighting for a woman's honor. You know, stories of heroism and building, coming up from small beginnings and humble beginnings, changing your course of destiny, taking life into your own hands, finding the deeper meaning to your purpose, finding your actual purpose in a virtuous way, understanding all of it, and putting that for the next generation. It is so desperately important. But we just, it's almost to the point where I think any books that I buy now, I will make mistakes from time to time. I don't know if I'm going to keep purchasing any, because I have books back here that I can't put in the hands of my kids. Oh, that's the other people. Actually, Shadowbinders from Clownfish TV. I think that they're very good. I think they did a good job. But I've got books back here I can't put in the hands of my kids. And I think I'm just going to stop buying books that I can't put in the hands of my kids. Why would I buy your book if I can't? Why would I buy your book and love that story and not be able to share it with the most important people on the planet to me? Nope, I know I did. I didn't say it was all of them. I know I did. I just haven't gotten around to yours yet. I'm bad at reading. I love being outside. If I could be outside in the heat, in the sun, working on something, whether it's building a barbecue pit or starting a fire or, just working outside. I love being outside. It's hard for me to be inside. I don't like to be inside. When it's 100 degrees outside and the sun is just murdering people, that's when I want to be outside the most. Ask my wife, she'll tell you. I'm a different breed, man. I love it. I love it. But there are times when I have nothing to do. And honestly, last Sunday, perfect temperature. It's like 70 degrees, 65, 70 degrees. Gorgeous. Sat on my back porch and I read for hours. I cleared most of Lord Otter's book. I think I'm on like page 168. And I think the story starts on like page 11 or something like that. That's a good day of reading for me because I don't read very often. I'm a slow reader because I don't have the muscle developed for that. It was awesome. And if I catch some hours this weekend. I'm hoping to set aside some hours in the evening when it's cool outside because it's gonna be hot as fuck. I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna finish Lord Otter's book. But I'm not gonna share it with my kids because I can't. And I think the Lord Otter knows that. And that's my issue. That's because you grew up a farmer, makes you operate how humans are supposed to operate. Yeah, well, I didn't grow up 100% a farmer, but I mean, I still had video games and shit like that. I mean, I was still inside a lot when I was a kid, but I was also outside a lot. I think people are scared to know what is kid safe because some parents are on the extreme end and some aren't. Well, fuck the extreme ends. They're stupid. If you're on an extreme end of anything that is born out of ignorance for a lot of people. For a lot of people. Mr. Clinton. What's going on? All right. So, moving on from that topic, because I ranted on that. We're gonna clip a lot of that and turn that into a video. I want to put that out. See how many people I can piss off. See how many people I can piss off. It's going to be great. Story over here. And I just pulled this one up, and I think everybody's very well aware of this. Getting over into video games. Now, EA confirms that it will be acquired for $55 billion by investors, including Saudi Arabs. Okay. In a statement, EA said it entered into a definitive agreement to be acquired by investor consortium comprised of PIF, Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners. The all-cash transaction, EA values $55 billion, and we'll see consortium acquiring 100% of the company. EA stockholders will receive blah, 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 all that stuff. Statement. Okay, so Public Investment Fund, which is PIF, is the sovereign wealth fund of Saudi Arabia and is reportedly essential to the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's goal of making Saudi economy less reliant on the proceeds of oil. The fund already owns billions of stocks in other video games companies such as Take-Two and other companies, I guess. Okay. So here is the thing. Here's the thing that I wanted to point out with this thing, because I see it, I view it a little bit differently than a lot of other people do. And I want to, let me make sure that I am quoting this correctly. Because religion breakdown. Okay. Islam is the state religion of Saudi Arabia, with approximately 90% of the population identifying as Muslim, according to the official statistics from 2022. Okay. The majority of the Muslims in the country are Sunni, with estimates suggesting 90 to 97% of the population. Okay. And then you've got the Shia, constitutes, they're saying 10 to 15%. That those numbers don't add up. Anyway, here's what I worry about. Okay. Over in Saudi Arabia and over in that part of the world, we're very much looking at, because a lot of people are saying, oh my God, like they're going to get rid of the gay in the video games, right, guys? Do you want Saudi Arabia with knowing this statistic? Okay. And we obviously know that, if you guys have ever read the Quran, I've got it over there. I've leafed through it a few times and there's some crazy shit in there. Is it a good thing? Do you think it's a good thing that Saudi Arabia acquiring EA is going to get rid of the wokeness, which that's just the word for the masses. I fucking hate it. It's called cultural Marxism, by the way. And they're going to get rid of all of that. And then they're going to start implementing a Muslim worldview in the video games. Is that something you view as good? Because I think a lot of people, you look way too sad. Hey, Hedge, I just complimented you earlier. You're going to have to catch the replay, though. I just complimented you earlier, so get fucked. I don't usually compliment the Hedge, so I don't know how to finish complimenting the Hedge, so I felt like get fucked was... Anyway. So is it really a good thing that they don't care about selling those ideas to non Muslims, I should probably read the Quran, because the Quran effectively says they better become, you're going to become Muslim, or you're going to have other things happen. So yes, it's in their holy book. And a lot of people say, well, they don't care. Yeah, they do. And in fact, that part of the world has been in a religious war for literally thousands of years, right? There was one point in time in which people could say during the Ottoman Empire that it was probably not as bad and more open. Wait. Okay. But it's not been like that for a long time. Stop it! I have a German Shepherd down here knocking stuff over. So that's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand. And for a lot of people out here kind of almost rejoicing to a certain point that this is happening, this kind of worries me, because I do wonder what kind of what bothers me the most about this is so many people out there will say, ew, Chinese games. I would never buy a Chinese game. And it's like, okay, you're not going to buy a Chinese game because they're like, well, Chinese communists and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And the human rights violations and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, but Chinese games don't have woke in them. What you would call woke. And they go, well, yeah. And I'm like, Saudi Arabia has a lot of similar human rights violations. Also tends to have a government that does not align with Western values, similar to kind of the communists in China. Yeah, I'm like, so why the fuck are you praising the fact that the Saudis are doing the exact same thing you complain about China doing? How does this make any sense? And this is what bothers me so much about this, because I keep seeing a lot of the conversation around, oh, they're going to get rid of the woke in the video game. My God. Oh, and it's like, okay, but China doesn't have that shit in their video games. It's actually outlawed there. But you don't want to buy a Chinese video game because they don't like Western values, because they do have human rights violations, right? Because they do have a government that doesn't align with the Western world. Saudi Arabia is the same fucking thing. Why are people praising this? This makes no sense. Mario Trujillo, that's probably a very true statement. So please explain this to me. How is it a good thing that control of an American company is going to a part of the world that largely doesn't like Western values? Anybody? It'd be nice to know. I would love to understand the logic there. Right? This was brought up by Trippy earlier today, and the way I'm going to paraphrase him, but he was like, oh yeah, you could talk about EA getting bought out and discuss how, Saudi Arabia is going to get rid of the woke and LGBTQ stuff in the video games. And since I heard about this, I was like, so we're going to trade one religion that is definitely not good, which is the woke, the cultural Marxism, for another religion that also definitely not good. What? Is EA Canadian? They might be Canadian. I thought they moved their headquarters down here at one point in time. Maybe I'm wrong. Could be wrong. Probably wrong. I'm sorry. Are they Canadian? They could be Canadian. Not a fan of who's buying EA series. No. Mike has bad knees. I think people are assuming the Saudis are moving to be more like the Arabs in Dubai or Qatar, where they allow non-Muslims to do their own thing as long as they don't evangelize and attempt to convert. Dude, you should see the human rights violations that are listed in Saudi Arabia. Like, they don't give a fuck. They don't care. I mean, great comment, Mike has bad knees, but just they don't. Let's go here. Saudi Arabia human rights violations. Let's see. That's an older one. I just found one from 2023. Okay, reports on human rights practices. Okay, so the U.S. Department of State. It burns us. Sorry. That was very bright. That went from a very dark screen to a very bright screen, and it burns my face. Now you guys can enjoy it. Enjoy the bright. All right, executive summary. There were no significant changes to human rights situation in Saudi Arabia during the year. Significant human rights issue included credible reports of arbitrary or unlawful killings, including extrajudicial killings and forced disappearance, torture, and cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment by government agents, heart and life-threatening prison conditions, arbitrary arrests and detention, serious problems with the independence of the judiciary, political prisoners or detainees, transitional repression against individuals in another country, arbitrary or unlawful interference with privacy, punishment of family members for alleged offenses by relatives, serious restrictions on freedom of expression and media freedom, including violence or threats of violence against journalists, unjustified arrests of prosecutions of journalists, and censorship, serious restrictions on internet freedom, substantial interference with the freedom of peaceful assembly and freedom of association, including overly restrictive laws on the organization, funding, or operation of non-governmental and civil society organizations, restrictions of religious freedom, restrictions of freedom of movement and residence within the territory of the state, and on the right to leave the country. Can't even fucking leave the place. Okay. I mean, this is 2023. Here's one here, right? For all the liberals out there that say that they love the Muslims, okay, laws criminalizing same-sex consensual conduct between adults, which were not enforced, crimes involving violence or threats of violence targeting lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, blah, 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 and prohibiting independent trade unions or significant restrictions on workers' freedoms of association. I just want to cover that one so that way the lefties out there hear it. Sent you super over on PayPal. Oh, crap, I got to log into PayPal. I don't know if I know how to log into PayPal anymore. Aha. Hey, look at that, it's Facebook. So, just out of curiosity, out of curiosity, how is it a good thing that this country is taking over video game influence? Oh, it's because they're getting rid of the woke, right? Yeah, they're getting. Did anybody think this the fuck through when they celebrated it? Anybody? No, but that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Maji Chan for $5 over on PayPal. Thank you so much. I don't have the notifications set to pop the way they need to. Royce, keep pushing the need for more children's stories. We need them more than ever. Yes, we do. Thank you very much. Sounds like we have some of those human rights offenses in this country. Yeah, we have some of them. But not all of them. Again, that was 2023. That was 2 years ago. Why would you be celebrating that? We say that we don't like video games from China because of the human rights violations over there. but yet it's okay to celebrate video game, a company being bought by Saudi Arabia? I think people need to understand that the hyper focus of one enemy in this world is wrong. There's something in construction. There's a term for my blue collar boys out there. You guys have heard this before. But there's a term in construction. Keep your head on a swivel, right? You ever been working out in the middle of a road? You've got cars whipping by you. You've got heavy equipment moving around. You've got tools being passed back and forth. You have excavations happening in the ground, literally changing as you walk, and keeping your head on a swivel to make sure that you're identifying all of the forms of threat to you that could, well, kill you and not let you go home, kill you or maim you. And I feel like a lot of people don't keep their mind on a swivel, right? It's the intellectual form of that. It's seeing all of the different versions of it. And it's like, well, just because these people aren't making the games anymore doesn't make it good that these people are. And you have to question some of the motives here, especially as strongly as some of these convictions are. I mean, if they believe in their country so justly, based off of their religion, it's definitely okay to just kill people. Why would you think they wouldn't put any of those beliefs in a video game? Mario Trujillo for $5 says, you're asking for sense on a senseless world. Also, some people are also pretty shallow in their beliefs. And have you heard the term white recycle bin? Mario Trujillo, I have not heard the term white recycle bin. This is something new to me. Would you further elaborate, please? This is interesting to me. I've never heard that before. Never once. I'm going to like your... thank you. A few years ago, and part of the reason I did a video a while back, and it was like why I stopped watching anti-woke content creators. And a lot of people are like, a lot of people kind of got what I meant. A lot of people didn't. A lot of people were very mad that I wasn't sit here parroting the party line. But it's not that I've changed my beliefs at all. I absolutely don't. But what makes me mad is when I see things like this. Oh, thank God. EA is being bought by somebody who's not going to put the woke stuff in anymore. And then you think about it for 4 seconds and you go, but wait a minute. But the people who are buying this, are just as bad. Have probably caused more death than the woke have. What? Seeing people oftentimes frame things a certain way on our side, on the freedom side, on the whatever, I don't even know what side I guess I'm on anymore. Because I have never sat here and tried to phrase something in a way to deliberately mislead you guys. And you know this. If you have ever called me out in the comments and said, you're fucking wrong and here's why you're wrong, you know I will pull that source up, look at it, and I will apologize for being wrong. I will apologize for putting out information that is not correct, not misinformation, because I'm not meaning to misinform you. I'm meaning to give you guys the absolute best of the knowledge that I have. And when you say your knowledge is insufficient, I look at you and say, I'm sorry. Thank you for presenting me with the proper information, and then I do my best to correct the record. But I've seen so many people in this culture war side of the aisle that I think I'm on, blatantly overlook things that their friends were doing that were wrong, blatantly say things without any sort of evidence backing it. How can you do that? And then when presented with that evidence, just brush it off. Again, go watch my, why I stopped watching anti-woke content creators, because I stopped trusting them. Because when I started to look into the claims that people were making, I realized they were lying. Or if they weren't lying intentionally, they didn't do their due diligence of the 5-second Google search that it takes to find this stuff. Well, Google hides not when you go to the fucking government websites. Not when you go to the websites that they're citing. So if you guys want to know why I don't talk about how bad the woke stuff is because I think my side that tries to twist and distort the truth is worse. They are worse. It's because they're willing, although I agree with their value set, I don't agree with lying and distortion to try to push that value set, to try to win, to try to own the lefties. That's wrong. It's detrimentally wrong. And we shouldn't put up with it. So yeah, if you guys ever say, hey, Royce, cover this woke thing that's happening over here, why? What's important to me right now is it's called housekeeping. I want to make sure the people who believe in the merits and the virtues that I believe in, we need to make sure we're holding them accountable. We need to make sure that they know it's not okay to distort the truth. It's not okay to put out information that you haven't properly vetted. It's not okay to just go off and say things to your fucking audience and have them believe it when it's not true. Just so you can own the left. There is no virtue in that. And if you get something wrong, if you get something honest to God wrong, you missed something. Maybe you didn't spend as much time as you should have. You fucking misspoke because you get flustered. You fucking have too many of these on a stream and you're like, fuck guys, I said the wrong thing there. My bad. I'm fucking sorry. I was wrong. And people will not fucking admit that because for some fucking reason, apologizing for getting something wrong is looked at as weakness instead of strength of character. So if you guys ever wonder why I don't follow a lot of the people that I used to, a lot of the people that probably brought a lot of us together, it's because of that. Because I got to a point where I started seeing things that they were saying, and I would go and I would look into it, and I could disprove it within 5 minutes. We need to keep our own house clean. We need to call out our own side for getting things wrong. And you know what's making me happy? And sadly, at least on the right side of the aisle, it took the death of Charlie Kirk for a lot of people to go, oh, fuck these weak-ass Republican bitches that want to sit there and get along with the people who want to murder us. No. You know what? It shouldn't have taken the death of somebody to do that. Really shouldn't have. I ranted about that a few weeks ago, wondering why the fuck people haven't woken up before. Because guess what? Charlie Kirk's not the first right-wing person to die. First prominent one, maybe. But I was pissed off that a lot of people on my side of the aisle didn't wake up before that. Didn't come to that realization before that. I'm still mad that there are a lot of people out there that say, oh, did you know that this game, because it was woke, didn't sell well? And it's like, well, fucking actually, looking at the numbers, no, it actually supposedly did sell well based off of what the shareholder meetings said. Where are you getting this information from? It's like, oh, well, I just heard it from this content creator. That content creator is fucking lying to you. Mario Trujillo, to quote my buddy, they're like white trash, only they act all fancy. That's, he might have two first names, right? Ladies and gentlemen, I kind of needed this. I had a lot of stuff that I needed to talk about and I needed to get off my chest. That's just things that were festering that I needed to think about. But I've been doing so many interview shows lately because I want to bring you interesting people and interesting projects. But I think at least a couple times a month, we're just going to sit down, just you and me. What do you guys say? How's about that? Just you and me. Sit down. We'll have some conversations. We'll drink about it. We'll talk about it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I got a couple of clips I'm going to pull from this show. I'll put them up over the weekend and into next week. I really appreciate absolutely everybody being here. Mario Trujillo says, to quote one of my favorite lines from One Piece, if you lose credibility by admitting fault, you never had any in the first place. That is fucking fantastic. I love that. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Wrangler. Have a good night. Hunter Wolf, what's going on? Tim Allen, thank you so much for being here. Man, there's all kinds of pollen and dust in here right now. When is the smoker stream? If I do a smoker stream, it'll be on Discord. But my my laptop that I had that I used to do those kind of broke. So I need to. I know, Hedge. That's the last time I compliment you in a stream. Oh, God, the stuff in the air is killing me right now. Why is air deadly? That's not right. I feel like that's wrong. Oh, well. I know! You're supposed to hear me. That's the bit. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to A Drink with Crazy. I will see all of you this Monday night with, I forget who, but stay tuned. And cheers, everybody.